Wingstop lives flavor, and you crave it. That's why we've created the Boneless Flavor Fix for you and your crew. 20 boneless wings, 4 flavors, 2 fries, 2 dips, and 2 cold drinks for just $20. Whether it's lemon pepper, Louisiana rub, or atomic, finding your flavor combo is easy, but deciding who you're going to split it with, that's a different story. The Boneless Flavor Fix. Just $20 for a limited time at Wingstop. The wing experts. Prices and participation may vary. See local restaurant for details.
Blog Talk Radio.
Actual kind of start of the summer movies, because we're not stopping for quite a while here on Damn You Hollywood. I'm Robert Winfree. I'm here with Mark Radulich.
We are taking one week break.
When?
We're not doing The Mummy.
Oh yeah.
It's been strict.
Thankfully,
I struck it from the calendar so that we could do a TV party tonight for this season of Flash as part of Flashpoint Week. But, yes, other than the week of The Mummy, to which I said, I can't take it anymore. No more. We're not doing this stupid monster universe. Yes, we're going every single week from now until the end of July. And then in August, we hit the dead, D-E-D, dead zone.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot in August, but other than that, yeah, we're in the thick of it here, guys. And tonight we are starting with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I'm really not quite sure where to start with this. So, I mean, Mark, you and I were both excited for this movie. We both liked the first one. I think I can't remember if we reviewed that or not. Was that before we were doing this regularly, or?
I feel like we did, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what, I can tell you in just updates in progress. Shit. Sorry. I'm going to boxofficemojo.com to get the money, and I'm getting a thing that says, we're in the process of updating the site. What is this bullshit? I need my money.
They're updating it so it's accurate, so you don't come out here and, blather incorrect facts.
It's 9 o'clock at night Eastern Standard Time. There's no reason to do this right now.
And yet. All right, so I suppose to start off just very briefly, I mean, you and I were both pretty excited for this one. Before I get into the specifics, there's a lot kind of going around about, how does this compare to the first? Is it, better, worse, roughly the same, so on and so forth. So, again, before we get into the specifics, just, again, less than 50 words. I'm not even giving you the actual 50 here. How did you feel about this one relative to the first one?
Okay. I came away feeling like they were two different movies. The first one was a sci-fi fantasy epic in the vein of Star Wars, A New Hope, and I regarded it as such. I believe the words I used at the time to my wife was, I haven't had that much fun at the movies since Star Wars. Another reviewer compared it to The Fifth Element in terms of a lived-in universe that felt real, one that you might want to live in, that really captured the essence of sci-fi fantasy. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of The Fifth Element in the movie, but I dig what they're saying in terms of the world. This movie, however, while still in that universe, was much more character-driven, to the point where, once again, you and I are going to have to scream and yell at reviewers, because for those people who wanted more of the same of the first movie and instead got a character piece that was filled to the brim with relationships and less on living in this universe, they were not happy with this movie, or they didn't think this movie was as good as the first one. The word fun got thrown around. This movie isn't as much fun as the first one, to which I say, this is why we can't have nice things. If a director decides to slow the pace of a thing down and give you a character piece, you have these nitwits out there who goes, well, I just wanted to go to the movies and have fun, to which I don't know what to say to these people anymore other than, please stop reviewing movies in public. just talk to your friends about it. That being said, I loved this movie. I don't have a tremendous amount of negative to say about it, because I was much more interested in watching the relationships between Ego and Star-Lord, between Star-Lord and Gamora and Nebula, Mantis and Drax, Rocket and Yondu. You know, that's the heart of the movie right there. And if you can't accept that, if that's bothersome to you, then yeah, I can see why people were like, I don't get this movie, I don't like it, or it's not as good as the first one. But the fact of the matter is, craft-wise, in many ways, I think it's superior to the first one because it isn't utterly reliant on being an action fantasy film. You actually have to have the actors acting and acting in front of the camera. You know, you're not just reliant on a bunch of spaceships forming an AIDS quilt and trying to stop fucking Ronan the Accuser's ship from landing on a planet. Oh, and by the way, we now have one of 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, one of 3 villains that was actually one of the best developed. You have Robert Redford from Winter Soldier, you have Loki, and you have Ego the Living Planet. 3 of the best. He now makes my top 3 of the best villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not counting the Netflix verse. So, I mean, we can get down into the nitty-gritty with this thing, but that's my overall assessment of this movie. It's a character piece. It's a character piece that I very much appreciated, and I thought all the actors held up their ends of the bargain. It looks gorgeous. It's really, in a lot of ways, a flawless movie. And the only way I think you could find a tremendous amount of flaw with it is if you're one of these nimrods who expected it to be the same movie again as the first one.
I will say that Ego's place in the top 3 is both deserved and a further condemnation of Marvel's ability to write compelling villains.
I'm just glad you agree with me on that. You being the villain expert, I didn't want you to be like, Ego the Living Planet was horseshit, and you are horseshit, sir. Yeah, I'm glad you agree.
I mean, personally, it's very different from the first in a lot of ways. I came away from it tending to think, yeah, that's basically about as good. I think most people couldn't accept the shift in kind of tone and style that went on, and that's leading to crying. But we'll get into that.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Ugh.
Everyone beware. This is my plot synopsis. If you haven't seen the movie yet, there are spoilers ahead.
Hang on, I have a breaking news. The Box Office Mojo website is A, working, and B, Boss Baby has shifted positions from number 5 to number 6 in the world.
No one cares.
The Boss Baby is currently number 6 in the world ahead of 50 Shades Darker. I just want you to know that. And
look, I don't know why everyone decided this year, but nobody looked at the dead months and went, let's release a big drawing movie in this month. I mean, The Last Guardians came out in August of that year, and had no competition for 3 weeks. I mean, it's pretty clear next week. I mean, we're going to be talking about King Arthur because I made you, essentially.
Yeah. Wait, there's something I need to add to this. I mean, and I really should wait for the money, but it's too good, and I have to keep talking about it. So, Boss Baby is number 6 in the world. 50 Shades Darker, which came out, I believe, in February, is number 7 in the world. And you bastard. You spoil my fun, creep. Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, number 9 in the world. Okay? In the world, Robert Winfree. I just want you to know.
Tell you what, if it holds on to number 9 by the end of the year, I will find it and I will watch it and we can review it at the end of December.
Woo! You heard it here first, folks. All right, get your plot synopsis.
Because, look, there's no way that thing's holding that position. Just flat out none.
Well, no. I mean, between Wonder Woman, what do you call it? Between Aliens, Pirates, Wonder Woman, and Despicable Me, and Spider-Man, it's going to get knocked out of the top 10. It has to. But that's hard.
Okay, now, you know what? I'll do one better. Because I think this might be a slightly more realistic wager. If that thing worldwide makes more money than the Justice League movie, I will review it with you.
That's not fair, and you know it. Even a piece of shit like Batman v Superman made almost $900 million. You know everyone's going to see Justice League. I mean, they may not make $1 billion.
I'm just saying. There's my line in the sand as far as that goes.
All right, so Justice League needs to make more than $346 million. Got it. I think it's going to do it, but that's fine.
You think? It might not.
All right, plot synopsis, go.
All right, this movie is set only a few months after the first Guardians. For those of you not aware of the timeline, our entire opening bit is the Guardians having been hired to guard these really powerful batteries from an interdimensional space monster. That whole battle is essentially ignored as we watch Baby Groot dancing around on the platform, which is great, by the way. But they do successfully get rid of it. They kill the beast. Rocket steals some of the batteries anyway because he's a raccoon and just compulsively takes things. And also because, again, there's a lot of character in this movie, and they discuss a bit of it with Rocket. This is representative of his need to kind of push people away because he doesn't deem himself worthy of, extensive companionship or whatnot. So he does enough things to the point where they kick him out, and then he can be justified in his worldview. Again, a lot of psychology there, and I'll lean on Mark as, someone who works in the mental health field when the time comes for that. Anyway, Rocket steals those batteries. They run afoul of the people who hired them, the Sovereigns, because they're a little uptight. They're this weird combination of, hierarchical and very built on protocol, while simultaneously half being stuck in the 80s, because their armada is just a giant video arcade. Anyway, they steal the batteries. The Sovereigns take exception to this. They chase them. Rocket and Star-Lord run into a bit of adversity about who's the better pilot. their payment for defending it, this is actually kind of important, was rather than, normal payment, they took custody of Nebula, who they were planning on delivering to Xandar. Anyway, the Sovereigns attacked them. There's a nice scene going through what did they call it? An interdimensional asteroid field. Anyway, they get through. They barely get through. They come out on the other side. More Sovereigns come around. They're about to die when a random ship shows up and with one fell swoop obliterates the entire Sovereign fleet that's chasing them. And the guy on the ship who fired the weapon kind of waves at them, and it's Kurt Russell with his awesome hair. Oh, crap, I forgot the actual start of the movie. All right, I will get back to that if necessary. My apologies. Anyway, they wind up crash landing onto this planet because, they flew through an asteroid field. And unlike Han Solo, they fall within the majority of people who can't get through unscathed. They crash onto this planet. The ship that saved them shows up and outsteps Kurt Russell along with Mantis. He introduces himself as Ego, at which point anyone with any knowledge of comics goes, oh, great, here comes the turn. But I digress. He says that he is Peter's father. There's some angst over that, but eventually they decide to go to his homeworld. So he takes Gamora and Drax with him. Baby Groot and Rocket stay behind to repair the ship, and Rocket's, feeling kind of sulky and antisocial, so that works. They go to Ego, the planet, and Kurt Russell does some explaining about him as, one of the first conscious organisms in existence. Meanwhile, the Sovereigns hire the Ravagers, specifically Yondu, to recapture the Guardians because they're pissed that they stole their batteries. There's also a bit of a subplot where Yondu and his group of Ravagers are excommunicated from the greater group, from the larger Ravagers, because they were dealing in children. And as Sylvester Stallone's character tells us, the Ravagers don't deal in kids. Further cementing Ravagers is essentially intergalactic motorcycle clubs. So anyway, Yondu and his group of Ravagers look to capture the Guardians, while Star-Lord and Ego work out some of their differences, some of the issues between them, like why did he leave? Why didn't he come back for him? I never had a dad. I used to tell people my dad was David Hasselhoff. Ugh. Sorry, bad. Not happy. While they're there, Mantis kind of hints that there's something else going on. Drax and Gamora get a bit of a bad vibe from the place. Rocket fends off the first Ravager assault. That's eventually undone as Nebula gets involved. Yondu still doesn't quite want to turn over Peter because he thinks of him like a son, even though that's buried under layers of machismo and lonerism that only comes out later in the movie. There's a mutiny because people are sick of Yondu's leadership and him taking care and him putting Peter above everyone else, and they're just unhappy. So they mutiny, like you do. They're largely successful because Nebula decides, no, this is a great chance for me to escape. Nebula does escape, commandeers a ship, takes off after Gamora, who her whole mission in life is to defeat at this point. Again, character. We'll get into the specifics later if we feel so inclined. Anyway, it comes out that, again, Peter is actually Ego's son. He has some connection to the life force that exists in Ego, the living planet. And essentially, as long as the planet lives, he can't die because his life force is connected to it. While he's on the planet, he can he can build things, he can connect to that energy, and basically a god. So as he and, Ego kind of bond a little bit. They get Ego's backstory. Nebula arrives, tries to kill Gamora. Gamora winds up saving her life. Nebula then chokes her out and claims victory, which I feel is something that Chael Sonnen might have done at some point, like just been hanging from the edge of a cliff, Someone saves him, and then he chokes them out and says, "No, I won," because Chael Sonnen's kind of a bitch like that. Yeah. Anyway, they reconcile. They don't quite reconcile yet, but they come to a bit of an understanding and stop trying to kill each other. They also discover the piles and piles and piles of bones of other failed progeny from Ego, who reveals his grand plan to Star-Lord. He's alone and he's been lonely, and he believes his purpose is to expand essentially himself. He has traveled to every habitable planet that he can reach reasonably, and he has planted seeds. In the actual opening sequence, we see a bit of that on them, and once he has someone else to aid him with powering the expansion of his consciousness through these seeds, he can expand over all other life, essentially transforming it into other matter, or just destroying it, and his consciousness will then be expanded. His life will have served a purpose. Again, a lot of when you're alone, you go crazy a little bit. That's kind of the gist of all that. As he's explaining this, it comes out that he's actually the one who gave Star-Lord's mom cancer. Star-Lord, who was on board for most of this, he seemed like he was there. Like, no, I see it. It's beautiful. This is going to be awesome. I'm doing something with my dad. And then, no, sorry, I killed your mother. At which point he freaks out. Starts engaging in combat. That goes poorly. Yondu and Rocket wind up turning the tables on all the mutineers with some help from Baby Groot. In a bit that goes on just a bit too long, I think, but is otherwise hilarious. They then go because they're trying to save Star-Lord. Yondu knows what Ego was doing with his other children. If they weren't able to connect to the life force he calls it the light, at the center of the planet, they were of no use to him, and he killed them. Like you do, I suppose. So they show up as this is happening. They incapacitate the physical manifestation of Ego. Again, that's Kurt Russell. But they can't let him go through with this, so they decide they're going to destroy the planet. Rocket jerry-rigs an atomic device, utilizing batteries and some spare material he had around. Rocket just is like a walking weapon of mass destruction if you give him 5 minutes. They go into the core of the planet. They send Baby Groot off with the bomb, and that scene that was played frequently in the trailers about Baby Groot trying to press the wrong button. The Sovereigns show up, having been informed of the location of the Guardians. We get giant...
By Taserface. You have to say
I wasn't going to bring him up.
By Taserface. No, Taserface.
I'm not going to acknowledge that.
Taserface.
Look, if you want to bring up
Taserface.
that bit as something that made you laugh, that's fine.
Taserface told the Sovereign where they were. He was the cause of their reckoning. That's so in the movie.
One of the Ravagers, who was part of the mutiny, sent off a message. Anyway, the Sovereigns show up. There's a big battle. Mantis tries to prevent Ego from really learning where they are by putting the whole planet to sleep. She's empathic that way. They wind up trying to fight off Ego's intrusion. Ego, once he regains consciousness, doesn't quite work. To the sound of Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, Star-Lord is able to fully connect with the power thanks to a little advice from Yondu. In a bit that made me, as a gunslinger fan, just kind of go, all right, so we're ripping off Stephen King now. Good times. There's a battle between Ego and Star-Lord, roughly akin to the final fight between Neo and Agent Smith from the third Matrix movie. While Baby Groot gets the bomb in position, he pushes the correct button, so they actually have time. Most of the Guardians escape, but Star-Lord has to stay back and prevent Ego from deactivating the bomb. Yondu stays behind as well, sacrifices himself in order to save Star-Lord. Those two kind of reconcile, and Star-Lord realizes that, yeah, sure, Ego was his biological father, but Yondu's the one who raised him. Yondu dies in the vacuum of space. They hold a funeral for him. The other Ravagers show up after they're informed of his actual heroism. In a touching scene, he gets the actual Ravager funeral, and the Guardians move on to their next adventure. Whatever that will be, most likely Infinity War, given the timetable. And then, there's a few post-credit scenes, one with teenage Groot, who I really kind of hope isn't in the next movie, because I hate teenagers. I mean, I hate most people, so I'm hardly the barometer here, but teenagers, man, just no. We also see, what else do we see? The creation of Adam Warlock by the Sovereign. He's going to be sent to track down the Guardians. But if you know anything about Adam Warlock, he's going to wind up just doing the Vision turn. That's fine. Not complaining. We also get, Stan Lee as one of the Watchers. Which is hilarious.
I didn't get that he was a Watcher. I saw him talking to the Watchers.
I know, but no, that's kind of the
suit.
gag. Because the fan theory about Stan Lee's cameos throughout all the movies is that he is a Watcher sent to Earth. And here he is talking with the Watchers. So again, they're not confirming him as, I think it's Yatu the Watcher. But seeing them playing with the fan theory like that had me... I laughed. I laughed pretty hard at that.
I laughed at him talking to the Watchers and them going kind of like just rolling their eyes and walking away from him, which is fine. But I think it's a bridge too far to call him a Watcher. He looked like a spaceman in a spacesuit. Not necessarily somebody who was a Watcher with a very distinct look. You saw that there were three of them there. I mean, maybe I am being obtuse about this, but I looked at that and I went, okay, I don't know what he is, but he ain't a Watcher. He's just talking to him.
He's clearly above even the Watchers, as they got fed up with him. No one's quite sure what Stan Lee is like actual God. That's how they're going to wrap up the Infinity Gauntlet narrative in the movie. Thanos is going to become all-powerful. He's about to kill everyone, and Stan Lee steps in and stops him.
So I have a
no,
more serious
this is my
theory
war. This is my universe. Sit down.
Here's what I think Stan Lee actually is. I believe he is the Beyonder. It's the only theory that makes any sense. Since the Beyonder is omnipotent, the Beyonder is omniscient. The Beyonder can be anything, can be anyone, and can be at any time in any dimension. Stan Lee is a Beyonder.
If you say so. Oh, we also see Sylvester Stallone's character of Skatar Ogord.
He's Starhawk. Just call him Starhawk.
Starhawk, okay. Reuniting with his team, which includes Ving Rhames, and deciding that, no, it's too bad it took the loss of Yondu to... I don't know what team that's supposed to be a reference to. My comic knowledge is...
It's supposed to be an earlier version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, as I recall.
Okay, we can roll with that.
I'd have to look it up again, but yeah, there are different iterations of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I believe that's one of them.
Okay, I will take your word for it, and that makes the most sense. So we might get a movie with that group of people. We might not. They're probably going to show up as cannon fodder for Thanos in all likelihood, but... And I think that was all the post-credit scenes. All right. Did I miss anything, Major? Anything that you want to expand upon?
Taserface is very important.
He is not important at all.
Other than Taserface, no, I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it. So I already went through a lot of my thoughts. I'm going to hit some very specific things. Going into this movie, I knew that James Gunn said this was going to be about father and sons in relationships, and that's what it was. There wasn't a tremendous amount of action, to keep it going. There wasn't a huge space battle like there was in the first one, but there didn't need to be. And people are comparing this in a lot of ways to The Empire Strikes Back. And I think to some degree that's true. But, why are we getting excited in a negative way about a movie that fleshes out your characters more and delves more into their psyches, but still gives you some great action sequences? That opening bit with the monster, yes, it's played for laughs because you've got it in the background while Groot's playing with the speakers. But you still get to see a bit at the end where, Drax jumps into the maw of the beast, and they cut the thing open, blah blah yakety schmackety. You get a chase shortly thereafter. You get that extended sequence of Rocket with the Ravagers, and then as the movie goes on, an extended sequence over several minutes, almost the entire third act of them battling Ego. So it's not like there wasn't action in this movie, but given Drax an opportunity to bond with Mantis, and Mantis sort of coming around and realizing that she's starting to care about Drax, and by extension, she realizes that they're all going to die, and she needs to warn them. I thought that was great. I thought all that stuff with Rocket and Yondu, some of the stuff with Rocket and Yondu was some of the best stuff of the movie. When Yondu finally gets in Rocket's face, and this is after, Peter says to Rocket earlier in the movie, like, are you trying to get people to hate you? Because it's working. And just sort of walks away rather disgusted with him. And then later on, you have Yondu calling him out on this idea that, you're pushing people away on purpose because you don't feel like you deserve to be loved, in so few words. And it's like, I know that because that's me too. And it's bullshit. I mean, this is what movies are. This is what movies should be. This is what movies are made of. It can't all be just a bunch of loud noise and blue lasers in the sky, which people complain about incessantly. So it's like, you're damned if you're a Hollywood director or producer right now, and you're reading some of the reviews for this movie, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I honestly feel sorry for those that are trying and making good films, because I feel like the audience from fucking The Simpsons. Give us hell, Quimby. You people are all flim flam. I did that out of order.
You people are terrible. You want one thing, then you want the other. Make up your minds. Yeah, that's right. Give us hell, Quimby. Yay.
Thank you. Perfect. I think by far the weakest part of the movie is actually Peter and Gamora, but, weak in comparison to some very strong character building and relationship parts of the movie is fine. It's still good. It's just not the strongest part of the movie. Some of the strongest stuff of the movie is Peter and Ego. And I love the fact, I didn't read any spoilers on this, and I wasn't sure if they were going with Ego as the villain. So I kind of just sat back and watched the story unfold. And I love the slow seducing of Peter by Ego, and the slow reveal that he's the villain. But he's, again, and we've said this so many times on this show, he's the best kind of villain. He's the one that honestly doesn't see the wrong in what he's doing. The idea that a celestial being would come to the conclusion that he must progenate and expand, he must spread his, if you will, seed across the universe, makes sense. It's brilliant. What else would he be doing? It is the most primal of all natures to spread your seed, to create progeny. So the idea that, he couldn't do it, he did not have the energy to do it himself, and so he had to create another being like himself in order to do it, and that and that ideally he wanted that relationship, to amount to something. But when Peter realizes that, he's going to destroy the universe if he does this, and this is a bad thing, he's just like, all right, so then I'll just use you as a battery. Either way, I'm doing what needs to be done here for myself. It's a self-serving, selfish ideal that this being has, but that's what makes him such a superior villain. You know, this isn't mustache twirly stuff. You know, and then it also isn't Ultron, who, you know, I'm evil for the sake of being evil, that sort of thing. You know, or Ronan the Accuser, who I don't think is as weak as all that. I think he's one of the stronger villains, but, you know, we're talking on a scale here. But I mean,
Ronan works when you understand. When you actually, the problem with Ronan, I think, was that a lot of people expected the totality of his viewpoint to be expressed on screen, when really you have to make inferences about who he is relative to the world he inhabits. He is a militant. He is a Kree. He dislikes these other people. There's a generational conflict here, and now you're just ending it for no reason when he's committed himself to the ideal of destroying the opposition. You know, a soldier with no war to fight will make their own war type thing.
So
which is
like
plenty
Malekith.
interesting. They just don't explain it in big, bold neon letters, so most people missed it.
So let's look at Malekith, one of the weaker villains of the Marvel Universe. You know, where I want to make the world black. Okay, why? Because I do. All right. You know, oh gosh, who else is out there? You know, the Red Skull wanted to take over the world.
Red Skull's okay.
Ironmonger just wanted to take over the company, and you know, just wanted to get rid of Tony Stark.
Executed was the weakness part there. Whiplash spends half the movie not on screen.
But he wanted revenge. This was a personal thing. He was out for revenge for having his family's name dragged through the mud and their invention stolen by the Stark family.
Which really, they didn't need Sam Rockwell in that movie. You were so much better off letting Mickey Rourke just be that guy, and you could save Justin Hammer for a future entry.
Guy Pearce, again,
yeah,
that was on Tony.
There was so much wrong with so much of that movie.
I'm not even getting into the Mandarin. But Guy Pearce basically wanted revenge on Tony for Tony being a dickhead. Loki is Loki.
Which, well, everyone can sympathize with to one degree or another.
Yeah. You know, we've already discussed Ultron. We've discussed Loki. Who the fuck am I forgetting? Oh, you've got Yellow Jacket.
Eh.
Yeah, Yellow Jacket. See Ironmonger. Same villain. What other movies have there been? Do I need to look up the wiki now on fucking Marvel Cinematic? Is that all the... Jesus Christ, is that all the villains?
Well, no, hang on. You had the Winter Soldier ones, which we talked about as being good.
Yeah, I don't... Well, that's why
then you had
that's why I'm skipping that
weird...
one.
And then you had Zemo.
Oh, God, then there's Zemo. Suddenly Zemo is betraying all of us. Suddenly Zemo.
I tend to think of Zemo as his theme song going along with the, and then there's Maude, you know, and then there's Zemo.
And then there's Zemo. Well, I do remember when we discussed Civil War, I was breaking into a chorus of Suddenly Zemo.
Yeah.
I was the author of all your pain, Tony. Ugh.
Daniel Bruhl's a talented actor, too. Why would you waste that?
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's everybody. We have 3 Iron Mans, 2 Thors, 3 Captain Americas, 1 Ant-Man. Oh, fucking, what's his face from Doctor Strange? He was fine.
Yeah, he was fine.
Anyway, back to what makes a good villain a villain. I think the point of this whole bit of this conversation is that Ego works, and Ego is a strong villain because he's not doing what he's doing out of a sense of evil. He's doing what he's doing out of a sense of this is what is right for him. What makes it evil is obviously the consequences of his actions and the fact that it is so entirely self-serving, you know, and selfish, which would make sense coming from a guy called Ego the Living Planet. So craft-wise, again, I thought that there was an even amount of action versus character building and relationship building and exploring those relationships. I thought the acting across the board was pretty spot on. Somebody remarked that I think the weakest performance goes to Karen Gillan, I believe her name is, who plays Nebula, and she played her the same way she played her in the first movie. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I like the fact that we're not living in the Lucasverse where everyone has to speak with a British accent and everything is, I Caligula or I Claudius serious. That, things like they're laughing at the name Taserface, and even the Sovereign were laughing at the name Taserface, and they were supposed to be a perfect society. You have
because it's so deeply and profoundly stupid. I mean, really, if you're going to have like 3 different characters make fun of your character's name, maybe you just rewrite the character a bit at that point. I mean, if it's that bad,
nope.
If it's so bad, the only way to justify it is to have everyone else openly acknowledge it's this bad.
Why? Why not have fun in the movie with it? Why does it have to be? Why if you're going to include Taserface to begin with, why change it? Why not run with it?
My point there is just, I don't know. It bothered me a little bit just because,
yeah, I don't understand why this bothers you so much.
It's just so profoundly stupid.
So, have you not seen some of the character names in the Marvel Universe? They don't use half of them because they're stupid, or their costumes are stupid. There's a reason.
I'm
why
aware of all of
Tarantino...
that. At which point, you either change elements of them to make them less stupid, or you completely leave them out. So in this case, I feel they either should have left him out or made enough alterations for it to be a bit more serious.
I think there's room in a movie with talking trees and raccoons and planets to have a guy named Taserface fully embrace it and have fun with it. I loved it. I thought it was great. I personally laughed my ass off when he's at the end of it. Know that it was I, Taserface, who is your reckoning. And you see the people from the Sovereign laughing at it.
I got a much bigger laugh out of Rocket mocking him. What was your second choice?
Yeah. This movie looks gorgeous. Ego is hail to the CGI and the cinematography in this movie. They made Ego look so great. That's a place I would want to visit. And these like movie fight type questions, like name a fictional place you'd want to go to. I would want to go to Ego, the Living Planet. It looked amazing. Obviously, the use of music in this movie it almost plays as much a role as any actor, and that was another complaint in the reviews, by the way, was the overuse of music. But I mean, that's the gimmick with these movies. So whatever. But I thought the use of music was great. I'm struggling to be critical, but I don't have. If I had to say, here's my problem. I'm about to say something that I don't necessarily have a problem with, but if I have to, but if it sounds like if someone's listening to this going, wow, why don't you just get down on your knees and blow the Radulich? Okay, fine. Here's something critical I can say. The movie is slow in parts. It's also slow in parts? Dog Day Afternoon. Brilliant movie. It's also slow in parts? The Godfather, The Deer Hunter, Deliverance. It's also slow in parts? Fucking Star Wars. Okay, people? That entire Tatooine sequence. That entire Tatooine sequence from the time the fucking droids show up, and crash land on Tatooine till about the time that R2-D2 goes missing and things start to really kick off and they, and the stormtroopers burn his aunt and uncle alive. That everything in between is slow as fuck. I couldn't play it for my kids because I got bored. Okay? I don't want to hear how slow this movie is from people as a critical thing. Yes, it is slow at times. It's okay for movies to be slow. Take fucking Vyvanse if you can't handle it. That's an ADHD med, everybody. I could have gone with Ritalin there, but I went with Vyvanse just because I'm smart like that and I know all my ADHD meds.
I wonder why you know all your ADHD meds.
Because I work in the mental health field.
I was trying to make a joke about you or your family or a family member.
Taserface.
Yeah, that's not going to faze me at this point. All right, I agree with pretty much everything Mark said. I mean, there's so much good in this movie. It is slower, but it's not. I hate to. I'm going to say this, and I know that in some respects I am now positing my personal preferences and the way I experienced this as like fact. It's slower paced, but it's not really boring. There's stuff happening.
Right.
It's not like huge. I mean, look, again, we've talked about this to death, but there's huge segments of various Transformers movies, and this applies to all of them, by the way. I'm not just isolating Age of Extinction here, where tons of things are blowing up, and people are ducking and diving and dodging, and there's dialogue being shouted, and oh boy, there's music, and it's supposed to be close to the end of the movie, and nothing's happening. I mean, by all means, if you think I'm making this up, first of all, in Age of Extinction, that happens multiple times, most famously with Stanley Tucci and the bomb. There's nothing happening. It happens in Return of the Fallen, the second one. Revenge of the Fallen, who cares? The second one. Right near the end, actually, they engage in that big firefight in the Egyptian desert. And it takes Shia LaBeouf something like 45 minutes to get 30 yards to Optimus Prime with the Matrix of Leadership before it's then stolen away, rendering the whole thing moot. Believe me, there's stuff happening. It's fast-paced, but it's boring because nothing's happening. So in this particular instance, yeah, there's not as much action, but there's always something going on worth watching. As far as, I had a couple of really favorite moments from this. Much like Mark, Yondu and Rocket have some of the best interactions in the movie. To the point where at the end when he tasers Gamora, and I can only afford to lose one friend today. It's where he and Yondu have kind of arrived. There were a couple of moments with Drax which is weird to say that he kind of got to me in a couple of places. I mean, I laughed when he's talking with Mantis about her being, hideous. And then the best part about that is he turns it around and goes, no, it's not really a bad thing. Now, if someone falls in love with you, it's genuine. Beautiful people can never be sure. But when he's sitting out on the steps with Mantis and says, this reminds me of something I used to do with my daughter, and Mantis reaches over and touches him to then feel what he's feeling, and she just breaks down sobbing because that's the kind of regret and loss that Drax carries with him essentially all the time. It was a nice, further kind of insight into a bit of that character and where he is emotionally. Pretty much everything between Chris Pratt and Kurt Russell is money. I mean, Kurt Russell is just money in this movie, just from start to finish.
I actually legitimately got a little teared up when they started playing catch with the energy ball.
That was, for me, that was their bridge too far. As far as, I know they might change things, so again, Ego in the comics is a tremendous, an evil guy, but they change things, so maybe he's not in this one. Maybe, this Avatar is going to die, but the planet's going to live on. I mean, there's all kinds of directions you could take it, right? When they start playing catch with the ball, I kind of went, okay, he's doing something squirrely here. Something screwy is about to happen.
Oh, and that's fine, but just the image itself. Look, I mean, I don't want to get all maudlin here or anything, and I think the scene was almost like purposely maudlin. But if you as a guy don't have some sort of visceral reaction to a boy and his pa throwing the ball around, you're dead inside. Or I mean, you know,
or me.
Look, my dad's not okay. My dad's not a sports guy, but even he threw the ball around with me once or twice. You know, I responded to that connection, that forgetting everything else about the movie, just knowing there's a guy out there who had for just a moment that connection with his dad. You know, it wasn't a planet, it wasn't Star-Lord, it was a dude and his dad playing ball for just a minute. And I get that with the context in there, it isn't quite as meaningful because you know that this is all a part of the seduction, but take the context out and just focusing on the image, I thought it was nice. And I was like, aw. And then within seconds I was like, yep, Star-Lord's fucked.
No, I mean, again, there's so much, and it's kind of weird. I have to watch it again and actually keep track of all of them this time around. But there's so many allusions to other work in this movie. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, again, you know, the motif of father and son playing catch is a powerful one. I mean, it's the emotional finale of, you know, Field of Dreams for a reason. But that's what I kind of got from that sequence. And again, elements of the roles are reversed because, again, if you haven't seen Field of Dreams, I can't help you there. You go watch it. James Earl Jones threatens to beat Kevin Costner with a crowbar until he goes away. I laughed so much the first time I saw that movie and that scene came up. Because it's James Earl Jones, right? But, again, there's... I really do have to keep track of them next time, but there's a lot of references to other films in the best way possible. I mean, again, there's great artists steal a significant portion of their work in the sense that they draw inspiration from or make reference to other things. And they did that frequently in this, and I'm not complaining about it. It worked quite well. I think the only instance of CGI that took me out of this movie, there was only one, when they crash land on the planet. Some of the trees were a little bit wonky, and then the whole bit about Drax hanging out the back of the ship looks awful. Just again,
yeah.
In a movie that filled with CGI, for there to only be that one 5-second stretch that made me roll my eyes. And again, I have a very discerning palette when it comes to visual effects like that. So I agree. It looks tremendous. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I really want to touch on. I guess all the interpersonal stuff is great. I think there's a valid argument that there might be a little bit too much Baby Groot in the movie. I mean, he's great,
really?
but there is a point of diminishing returns.
Well, I'll tell you one of the criticisms from Half in the Bag that I thought was interesting. I don't know if I agree with it. Not, I'd have to see the movie again and sort of take another look at it. There are gags that go too far, that just go too long.
Yeah. No, I agree. Oh, there's one in particular that kind of struck me, and my brother who saw the movie, we talked about it. When they're trying to send Baby Groot to get the head fin for Yondu.
That's the one.
I think that whole bit peaked with him bringing up the severed human toe.
Yeah.
Because he brings up the severed human appendage. Rocket looks at Yondu and goes, "Please tell me you have a fridge of severed human toes laying around somewhere." Yondu just kind of shakes his head. Rocket's response is, "Okay, we're just never going to speak of this again."
That's a hard cut right there, and then give him his fin. Look, as somebody who has an ongoing bit on Metal Hammer of Doom of going, come in, horsey, because I tend to beat a dead horse, when it comes to certain things. I, for weeks, made fun of Jesse for having the audacity to not liking Slayer to my satisfaction, and I wouldn't let it go for weeks, okay? That's part of my humor. I enjoy a good beating of a dead horse. And even that was a bit much for me. I was like, all right, we got it. One of the things that the RLM guys from Half in the Bag, the one they mentioned was that Rocket blowing up the Ravagers goes on forever. That could have been cut down to 1 or 2 booby traps, and then they get him, as opposed to 4 or 5 that they actually do in the movie. There's the one you see in the trailers where, they all get blown into the sky with the darts, but then there's a whole bunch of other ones. And it's like, on the one hand, you want to give the audience an action sequence, and if you cut it too soon, you're not feeding that beast enough. However, it also goes on so long, it's like, we got it already. Rocket's smarter than all the Ravagers. This could have been done in 2 sequences, not 5, or however many it is.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'd agree with that. I did love the payoff gag. I did love the payoff gag to that, though. When he lands between those two, and like, okay. I mean, there was clearly, I think actually one of them says, you're not so tough without your... All I heard was, you're not so tough without your car, are you? The kindergarten cop reference to everyone out there. One of them says, no, you're not so tough without your gadgets, and Rocket proceeds to beat the crap out of them with his bare hands.
So, yeah, those are just 2 examples, I think, of where if you needed to cut time from the movie, or just to speed things up a bit. But again, now, and this is the Age of Extinction argument again, when editing a movie and trying to figure out what's the best story to tell to your modern 2017 audience, do you cut the action? Which is what people are putting their money to. Look, people weren't paying to go see a character piece. Okay? They got a character piece, and I think by and large people enjoyed it regardless of that. But let's face it, no one's going to Guardians of the Galaxy, and expecting The Godfather. You're expecting Star Wars. And so when you start cutting into the action, you're cutting into your bread and butter. So it's like, where's that line? You know what I mean?
It's a rough thing to do. I mean, again, you and I argued about Age of Extinction because I maintain there's... And in Age of Extinction, it was also very, very obvious because there's so much stupid action. Here's where you can trim. You can trim, and I'm not saying, and again, I don't think I ever said cut this whole segment for maybe Stanley Tucci with the bomb, because really.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yeah, and if Adam West had been the guy dragging around the nuclear warhead, it would have been funny.
I'm not fighting this argument with you again. But if people want to hear it...
I'm making a point here that in a movie that is nothing but action, figuring out where to cut and trim is not as difficult. In a movie here where that is essentially, build around the action and the humor, deciding where and how to trim that in a movie that is more economical with it is a much harder task.
Yeah. All right. Overall,
I think there's only one other thing I wanted to say here.
Okay.
I read a comment somewhere, and I forget where. I can't remember if it was Twitter or one of the reviews I read. But someone brought up that this movie feels very much, while it's different from the first, it does feel like a very organic extension thereof, and this person brought up the Kill Bill movies. For those of you unaware of that particular story, Quentin Tarantino conceived Kill Bill as one, I think, 3.5-hour movie. Of course, this was back in, the early 2000s maybe, when the prevailing wisdom was still that an American audience will not the wide-going American audience will not sit for anything over 105 minutes. Peter Jackson had yet to prove them wrong, which essentially is what he did with Lord of the Rings. Like, okay, there'll all be 2 hours and change, but Peter, we're worried about a big budget, blockbuster movie going over 90. Nope, 2 hours. Deal with it. And people saw them anyway.
Look at also Pirates of the Caribbean is almost 3 hours long, and and that
Which
launched
one?
the franchise, and people loved it.
The first one?
Yeah.
I'd have to. Okay, I know the third one's like 3 hours.
I just watched it today with my son, sir.
Okay, I will take your word
today
for
with
it.
my son.
The point being, they didn't know any better, and they told him, if you want to make this, it has to be 2 movies. So he chopped it.
Hang on. It's 2 hours and 23 minutes. All right, I'm a little short, but yes, it was over 2 hours long.
2.5 hours, right?
Yeah.
It's a significant chunk of time. And I maintain that if Tarantino today decided he wanted to make a 3.5-hour movie and Kill Bill, people would just let him do it, and we'd get one homogeneous film. Instead, we got 2 pieces of one film. The first one is not as good as the second because that's where he wound up stretching for time. And the second one essentially remained intact, and it's a crying shame, because if you let him just make that movie the way he wants to make it, it's a tremendous film. And I bring that up simply because, while not intended to be one film, there's a bit of that vibe that I get here, in the sense that there is so much from the first movie that is immediately referenced in the second. I mean, some of it's gags, like Baby Groot stopping dancing when Drax is looking at him. Some of it's a lot more both subtle and profound, especially some of the interactions between Yondu and Star-Lord. And I really wish my local theater hadn't done the double feature only in 3D, because I'm not paying for that crap. It's not worth it. But the point I wanted to bring up is, I feel that you might get a very different experience if you actually watch those 2 movies back to back, because it's very homogeneous in that particular sense, and it's something I plan on trying out in the near future, as soon as reasonable. I think that was the last thing I had to say on this one, and I believe that will bring us to Shane O'Mac.
All right, here we go. All right, folks, here comes the money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
All right, as I said earlier, and I don't want to belabor this point, Guardians of the Galaxy, as of this writing, and we are recording this on Tuesday night, May 9th? Yeah, today's the 9th.
May 9th.
Is currently the number 5 movie in the world at $441 million. Folks, this is to let you know how significant this is. In one weekend, it has made more money than all but 4 other films. Almost all of them came out between March and April. Okay? It is only preceded by Beauty and the Beast, The Fate of the Furious, both over $1 billion apiece. Logan currently over $600 million, and Kong Skull Island at $564 million. Okay, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Kong's going down by next week.
Oh, well, no. Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be the 3rd movie this year to make $1 billion. Whether it makes more than The Fate of the Furious or less remains to be seen. But it doesn't have any competition in King Arthur. We're going to review it. We're going to go see it. I'm sure King Arthur will be fine. I haven't looked at the budget for it yet, but I mean, I can't imagine it was, we're not talking a $200 million budget here, I'm sure. So I'm sure it'll do its piece. But my prediction is that this weekend coming up, Guardians of the Galaxy will still be the number 1 movie for the weekend. And it's only going to get defeated by Aliens if it three-peats, and I can't imagine it three-peating, because
I don't
Aliens
know.
has a very good following.
I'm not sure how much overlap there is between Alien Covenant and a lot of the crowd seeing Guardians.
Yeah, but I mean, let's say Aliens makes $50 million, in its opening weekend, and Guardians, in its third weekend, makes 45. I mean, yeah, Guardians is eventually going to make $1 billion, but to win the weekend, we're only talking, in a weekend here, it just has to make less than whatever Aliens makes, to lose. So, and usually, I mean, other than Star Wars, The Force Awakens, these, there's definitely diminishing returns as, week after week after week, even for movies that are wildly successful. It's not like, other than The Force Awakens, you have these high rates of people from week to week seeing these movies. It diminishes over time. So with that being said, Guardians of the Galaxy right now is a phenomenal success. It had a $200 million budget. It's already doubled that, in just its first weekend alone. Another big win for Disney. That's currently worldwide. It's got 2 in the top 10. And as I said, rounding out the top 10 is Boss Baby, 50 Shades, Your Name is another foreign movie, Xander Cage, and then The Great Wall. But that 7 through 10, they're all going to get knocked out of. They're all going to get knocked out of the top 10 by the end of the summer. Because as I said, we've got. I mean, Aliens may not stay in the top 10 for very long, but that's at least a $400 to $500 million movie. Pirates will probably do $1 billion. I keep saying Minions. The Despicable Me 3 will probably do $1 billion. I mean, if it's got the kind of legs that Minions had. Spider-Man will be somewhere in the 500 millions probably. I don't think that one makes it to $1 billion. And Transformers does $1 billion. So yeah. So
please don't
nice
see Transformers. Let Mark and I be the only ones who suffer.
That's not going to happen.
I'm just asking. That's all I'm doing. I'm well aware of reality. This is my plea to the better part of humanity. Please don't do this to us.
I don't know why you're doing that, but
because I want us to deserve nice things, Mark.
Yeah, people are complaining about a character-driven movie. Characters, things you're supposed to have in movies.
I know.
You know, A Dog's Purpose is the 17th most highest-grossing movie worldwide? A Dog's Purpose. It's one spot ahead of Smurfs, The Lost Village, which I saw, by the way. I took my kids to see Smurfs, The Lost Village, and we didn't get a review up. Just didn't have time to sit down and do one. But I
wouldn't have done it.
The kids liked it too. The kids really enjoyed it. What kills me about the Smurfs is I want to say it's doing better than Power Rangers. Yeah, like the Smurfs, The Lost Village is at $172 million for the year, which is better than Ghost in the Shell, John Wick, Power Rangers, and Underworld Blood Wars. Can you believe that?
Yes.
That's where we are in this world right now.
I can
Smurfs,
always
The
believe
Lost
that.
Village.
Hang on. I will always believe and can understand why a mediocre children's movie will outdraw mediocre movies in other genres. Because you're not just buying one ticket.
That's right.
You get. Look. You said you took your kids, right? That's a minimum of 3, and your wife probably went with you.
She sure did, Ollie.
So there's 4. All of a sudden, instead of one guy or 2 friends who liked the first John Wick and decided to give the second one a go, they are just by the nature of the audience they're appealing to, they are doubling their potential. I have no problem understanding why that happened.
So just looking at things here, domestic, it pulled in, as of this writing, $156 million, and foreign, $285. And, like I said, I suspect, next week it pulls in a big haul as well, or rather this weekend. I don't know. How long? Now, I feel like Beauty and the Beast, it took about a month to get to $1 billion. It took about 4 weeks from the time of its release in March through April to finally hit $1 billion. How long before Guardian hit, do you think?
Oh, that's tough. Guardians might have more rewatch value. There's less competition over the next week. And has it been released in every major market, or are we still waiting on something like India or China?
Oh, that's a good question. I would have to look. I would have to look to see on the wiki where it's still got where it's
hang
still
on, let
has
me
to
see
open
here.
in. I know.
Outside of the U.S. and Canada, earned $106 million in 37 markets, becoming the top film in all markets except Portugal, Turkey, and Vietnam. Wonder what they were watching. And its second weekend, it opened as the top film in South Korea, China, and Russia, so a lot of major markets it's already opened in. In Australia, the Netherlands, Germany, the UK, New Zealand, Italy, I've mentioned Russia.
So, interestingly enough, in a head-to-head comparison with the first movie, the domestic gross, well, okay, if I'm reading this correctly, and I think I am, it's saying its domestic gross as of right now has the first one at $333 million, and this one is half of that, at about $156. But I feel like that's total. Yeah, that was total. That wasn't just the first weekend. Its opening week, okay. Its opening domestic was $94 million for the first movie.
This one opened much bigger. The primary difference is going to come in the following weeks because, again, the first Guardians opened in, I think, August, and there was nothing.
Yes.
It had like 3 uncontested weeks of, oh, you're trying to release something? Haha, funny. That's not the case with this one.
Yeah, this one's opening weekend slaughtered the first one. It was like 90-something. This one was $146 million. So, I mean, Disney is once again just crushing it. Crush. If you want to know what the domestic totals are, domestics are always interesting. Just because the foreign taste tends to be so different from Americans. Beauty and the Beast and Logan and Fate of the Furious are still your top 3 movies in that order. But coming in at number 4, Robert's favorite movie of this year, the Lego Batman movie.
Shut up.
Followed by a horror spectacular, Get Out, Kong Skull Island, The Boss Baby, and coming in at number 8 with $156 million thus far is Guardians of the Galaxy. Then we have Split and then 50 Shades Darker. On the American scene, Power Rangers and John Wick did a little bit better. They came in at 12 and 11. There's a dog's purpose again at number 13. More people overseas saw Xander Cage than they did in the United States. And in the United States, it's holding at the number 16 movie of the year at $44 million.
Oh, it's going so far down.
2 spots above Smurfs: The Lost Village. And poor Ghost in the Shell. At a $110 million budget, this thing has only made $168 million. Oh, Scarlett Johansson, you poor, poor bastard.
It was an interesting choice to try and adapt that particular property.
Well, it made the worst wide openings list. Came in and
Well, I mean, Ghost in the Shell is a tremendous property. It's also very within the bubble. In as far as, God forgive me for using the phrase geek culture, right? But, and I don't mean that in the sense that, it's been, that phrase has been monopolized by crap like the Big Bang Theory. I mean, like, legitimate, the guys at your local gaming store, right? That's the kind of crowd you had to be in to really know what Ghost in the Shell was about. So they had an uphill battle in the sense that you're taking a very cult property and trying to expand it into a multi-million-dollar franchise. It was an odd choice.
Wow, Billy Lynn's long halftime walk only made $30 million. Yeesh.
Because it was
Ang
terrible.
Lee, you poor bastard.
Oh, Ang Lee
Ang
doesn't
Lee,
care.
you poor bastard.
Look, Ang Lee's already made his money. Ang Lee has already done everything he kind of really wants to accomplish.
I don't mean to yawn in your ear. All right, I think that does it for the money. So, are you ready to do this?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, folks. This is going to be a mishmash of both fresh and rotten reviews here. I read a whole bunch of these over the weekend, and I shook my head in shame. But in both cases, I was annoyed with these reviewers. So let's get to it. All right, Anthony Lane of New Yorker, top critic, says, let's hope that Volume 3 recaptures the fizz of the original instead of slumping into the most expensive group therapy session in the universe.
Oh, for the love of... Okay. Here's part of the problem. Here's one of the reasons this was always going to suffer critically, in a large part because most critics are morons, hence this whole segment, right? Whenever you're surprised by something, and it's really good, you have unrealistic expectations for all things pertaining to it. So a sequel is consequently, whenever it's anything other than an exact retread, is then going to be subject to, well, it's not the first one, so it's not as good, and let's hope the third one is more of the first one. Right?
Yep.
I imagine there were people who said that about The Empire Strikes Back, and then you got Return of the Jedi, so you got what you asked for, numbnuts.
Andrea Chase of Killer Movie Reviews. This sequel drifts into a bit of maudlin sentimentality that has no place in this universe, even if this installment is all about daddy issues.
Oh, God forbid our
this?
characters have depth. Heaven forbid that events from a previous film or other events in their life actually have an impact on characters going forward. I know you've all been brainwashed by crap like J.J. Abrams and the Star Trek movies where every time we start a new one, boy, we got to get right back to where we were in the first movie, ignoring character development, story development, and other actual consequences from action for the sake of emotional familiarity. But no, that's not how this works. Things have consequences, movie to movie, especially in a big series. That's what you're going to get here. And but no, I liked this. How dare you try to do anything different? You're all Homer Simpson, right? You're all Homer Simpson at the Bachman-Turner Overdrive concert going, play taking care of business. No new crap, no other stuff, taking care of business. And then when they do, you tend to butt in with get to the work and overtime part. Congratulations.
Steven Silver of Entertainment Tell starts off much like the original, but goes off the rails in the third act. No Marvel movie to date has gone this far south this fast. I have no idea what this person's talking about. None.
That is just like inane. Did you not see the third act of Iron Man 3? I mean, Mark, you and I defended that elements of that movie, I seem to recall, and with good reason. But seriously, that takes a left turn out of nowhere for no discernible reason and never recovers. Again, there's things about it that are worth defending, and it wasn't as bad in certain places as everyone seemed to make it out to be, but seriously, big left turn.
I'm not convinced this next person actually saw the movie, like at all.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly certain she wrote this based on the trailer. Susan Granger of SSG Syndicate. Although the fast-paced plot is convoluted, there are intergalactic battle sequences galore and lots of zany humor. I don't know what's
did your narcolepsy kick in for like the whole second, the whole middle of the movie? where there's, maybe one or two action sequences, both of which are rather sedate. Both Nebula trying to kill Gamora and Rocket and Yondu's reclaiming of their ship are relatively sedate as far as, crazy action scenes go.
Yeah.
I mean, there was enough action to be an action movie, but the plot's not convoluted. The interpersonal relationships are explored and can be a little bit strained, as interpersonal relationships tend to be. But the plot was relatively straightforward. I don't understand what lost you here.
So I'm only reading this one to you so that you can find this person and hit them over the head with a dead salmon. Josh Terry of Deseret News, Salt Lake City. Both hardcore comic fans and more casual movie fans will be happy with the results, though parents may cringe to find Volume 2 a bit more crude and violent than the first film, which took place in a prison, by the way. Just want to remind people of that.
Parts of it did.
It took place in a large part of the second act takes place in a prison where everyone gets a little stabby. What the hell is this person talking about?
Yeah, look, Guy, I get you're trying to write to your audience here. I really do. And that's one of the cardinal things of writing is know your audience. I appreciate that. Here's the thing. This is no more crude than the original was. That may surprise you because you have, believe it or not, for a movie that came out that recently, you have a bit of rose-colored glasses. Rewatch the original. Because there's a whole bit where Star-Lord said, that whole bit at the end where he says, that message he sends to John C. Reilly. The word dick featured prominently in that film. That's all I'm saying. Don't complain about the crudeness. And as for the violence, do you know that Guardians of the Galaxy actually has the highest on-screen death count in movie history? Has that occurred to you, sir? Is the violence a bit more in your face here in the sense that Yondu is, spearing people with his arrow rather than they are in a spaceship that blows up? Sure, that's fair. But in terms of both raw numbers and even in many ways execution, no, you're off base here a little bit.
Kristen Lopez of the Young Folks. Disney and Marvel haven't learned that less is more. And instead, they subscribe to the Lego movie mentality that everything is awesome no matter what. I once again have no idea what this person is talking about. In many ways, this was a much more subdued, much more, much smaller film. I mean, we aren't wrecking an entire city in, a la Man of Steel. There isn't a huge space battle. I almost said we don't wreck an entire planet, but that's the character. And so what I'm trying to say more is, it's basically its ego versus the ego versus the Guardians at the end. It isn't this massive space battle, with this huge warship and fleets and all this other stuff that's happening. It's a much more personal thing that's going on. Like I said, it's a smaller movie in that, like, the world expands, but the circle we're drawing around the characters, I think, is a little bit smaller this time around. So again, this everything is awesome and, less is more. Like, I don't know what she's looking for here.
We got less is more. I mean, really, there's a lot. There is like a whole scene and a half worth of action that is less to this one from the original. I don't unless you're complaining about runtime. I mean, if your complaint is, I wish they'd shaved 30 minutes, I would invite you to sit down with your home editing software and try it.
Walter Chaw, Film Freak Central. Feels like a parody of Guardians of the Galaxy.
I want to throw something. What's this guy from? Hang on. What was the publication?
Film Freak Central.
Okay. Anyone who knows this gentleman. I'm not going to encourage that kind of vandalism. Hang on. I almost said pour sugar down his oil tank, but hang on. Because that'll ruin your car very quickly.
Hang on. You're wasting time on that when there's so much more to talk about here.
Okay,
Michael
look,
Scragnow.
if you happen to know that guy, I want you to find a water balloon. Go ahead and make one and just throw it at him. Preferably strike him, because no.
Michael Scragnow of Film Comment magazine. Why should every matter of director hanker to make movies that are character-driven? What a terrible phrase that is. It makes drama feel like heavy labor. Get him. Get him,
I
Winfree.
can't believe you. Hang on. You review film, right? This is at least partially your profession. Okay, let's start there. Let's just start with that basic premise, right? You review film, and you hate characters. I mean, what is this? Like, why should every director want to make a movie that has characters in it? I don't know, because they don't want to make porn. I mean, what is the basis for that statement? That is just the most asinine thing possible. Look, I've mocked and berated Adam Sandler for making the worst movies possible, right? Okay, let me say this. But I know why he makes them that way. Because there's a bunch of people who find uninformed humor the best. I'm not one of them, pretty much ever, but I get that. I get the artistic fulfillment that comes even from crafting something that you believe is funny, and the financial fulfillment from executing another Ponzi scheme, because that's all Sandler's movies are at this point. How in the world do you look at that sentence, at that point of view, that why do you want a character? Why should a director make a movie about characters? Because they haven't figured out how to replicate Brett Ratner en masse yet. All right, and even Ratner, I got to say this, much as I find him to be a hack of the highest order, understands how to develop a bit of character in his movies. Even Ratnerbot 2.0 knows how to do that. So what in the world are you saying? If you don't care about... I'm sorry, that's just... That individual... All right, anyone who knows this guy, right? I want you to let the air out of his tires. Right? Don't cut them. No damage. Just tonight, unscrew the tire... Hold down the freaking nozzle. Let the air out of his tire. At least one of them. Just, you, sir, are of no value. Just straight up none. Reconsider your life choices. Return your last paycheck and do something to which you are better equipped, because the accurate assessment and discussion of film is clearly not amongst your abilities.
Eric D. Snyder of ericdsnyder.com. To a large extent, it's coasting on goodwill from the previous film. But the previous film established a lot of goodwill to coast on. Going to reiterate what I said before, these are largely two different films. But sure, goodwill. Got it.
Look, if you want to argue that Marvel as a, larger cinematic universe is kind of coasting on goodwill through elements of their entries, that's slightly more relevant. But look, there's clearly a reason why you work for your own website.
Rashid Irani of the Hindustan Times. Overall, though Volume 2 suffers from blockbuster bloat, hopefully the next installment, hinted at plentifully in the end credits, will recapture the fun-fueled zing of the original. Ah, yes, there's that word fun again. I went into the movie and expected to have a whoopee good time. And I didn't have a whoopee good time because the characters talked. They talked, and they talked, and they talked all so much, and there was not enough of the bang, bang, boom. And I was bored.
You're looking forward to the next Transformers movie, because that seems about what your palate is. I mean, no, look, again, $20 says that guy went into the first Guardians movie with zero expectation. So when it was good, and a little bit offbeat, and, featured a lot of familiar songs. He was then blown away by it, and now that there's actually an expectation associated, it's unrealistic and inevitably falls short. I mean, come on, guys. What are we doing here?
And Jason Bailey of Flavor Wire. How many times is it funny or unexpected to score an action sci-fi set piece with an incongruent 70s pop song? In the first film, it was novelty, but nothing kills novelty like monotony.
No, that's kind of the gimmick. I mean, I understand the point, and it is a valid point. Something that was new and shiny becomes less new and shiny each time. That's fair.
Yeah, but I do subscribe to the notion of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Tend to agree with that as well. And really, we're only at 2 movies. If we get to 3 and 4 and the same thing is still happening and it's becoming monotonous, we can revisit the discussion. But here, if you hadn't done it, you'd be lambasted and harpooned for deviating too much from what was expected and what made the first one work.
John Wenzel, the Denver Post. Here's hoping the inevitable Volume 3 rebuilds some of the first film's heart, because Volume 2 feels like hollow spectacle, however gorgeously rendered.
Oh, piss off!
So we're either spending way too much time with the characters, or we're not spending enough time. Got it.
I mean, look, the first one succeeded in large part because there was emotional attachment to the characters. 2 excels at that same thing because they give it depth. They broaden it. They expand upon it. And there's still more than enough emotional connection here to work. In many ways, better than the first. The first one, much as it worked, let's be fair, if you want to get an audience in tears, a little kid watching his mom die of cancer is a pretty solid way to go.
Christian Toto of HollywoodInto.com. Hollywood in Toto, rather. Sorry. HollywoodInToto.com. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the first MCU film to talk down to its audience. Well, that's wrong on several.
How in the world did you arrive at that conclusion?
First of all, if this is talking down to the audience, I can think of several other ones that talk down to the audience well before this one. Oy.
Yeah. Like, all of them.
Sean Burns of Spliced Personality. More of the same feels like less. Again, 2 different movies, for
sure. We've addressed that particular issue. You're an idiot.
All right. Let's get a few more really good ones here. Oh, good. This is brilliantly insightful. Josh Larson of Larson on Film insists on trying to wear big boy blockbuster pants.
Whoa. That. Have you seen no other movie this year? Literally. That is the only possible justification for that sentence.
Oh, no, this gets worse. Christopher Lawrence of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Worse than occasionally being a downer, Volume 2 is something Guardians of the Galaxy never was. Dull, often for long stretches. This is why we can't have nice things, ladies and gentlemen.
How dare we have characters interact with each other? We want Mark Wahlberg with his New England, Texas accent running around with robots.
This is why they're going to make 15 more Transformers movies, everybody. And you only have yourselves to blame.
Look, even though it's slower, and again, that's valid. If you want to, this is a slower-paced movie, and if that doesn't appeal to you, fair play, right? 100% fair play. It doesn't make it dull. It makes it deliberate, and those are 2 very different things. Yet here we are having to explain to professional film reviewers the difference.
Speaking of which, Manola Dargis of New York Times, top critic, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 certainly has its attractions, but most of them are visual rather than narrative.
Oh, for the love of...
Could you imagine? Could you just imagine these same critics in a world of Dog Day Afternoons and The Godfathers and The Deer Hunters and Deliverance
Easy
and
Riders
Bonnie and Clyde? Yeah. Dog Day Afternoon. My afternoon was certainly a dog day after this, sleeper. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, these people have just... What were you raised on? Did you even... I mean, I'm going to go out on a minor limb here and say none of you actually went to, film school as such. Did you even take an elective, history of film course at whatever community college you poured liquid nitrogen over yourself to attend? I mean, how in the world... I don't understand the volume of brain trauma you must have sustained to be this fundamentally inaccurate about what happened. I mean,
okay.
We're not even talking about...
I got to read you this.
Okay, go ahead.
I got to read this to you. I got to read this to you, but this is actually a fresh review, okay? This one was filed under fresh. I'm not entirely sure why. Victoria Alexander of filmsandreview.com. The best sequel in years, though I didn't understand the plot or the dialogue.
I mean, are you both deaf and blind?
Kurt Russell's dialogue in this movie isn't exactly techno-geek. If you watch enough Flash or Star Trek or something, you might get lost in sort of the sci-fi. But he's sitting there just I came to the conclusion after transversing the cosmos that what I really needed to do was expand myself, so I planted these seeds, and at the right time, I'm going to use your energy and mine to make myself basically take over the universe. What the fuck was so hard to understand about that? That's basically what he told Chris Pratt.
I didn't understand the dialogue. What part of it? Again, if you don't speak the language and they didn't subtitle it, that's about the only defense I have for that statement.
Yeah, I don't understand what there wasn't to understand. An alien planet has decided he's going to remake the universe in his own image, and that'll kill everybody. So our heroes try to stop him. That's actually less convoluted than any of the other Marvel plots I can think of.
That's
most
less
of them I can't do in a
convoluted
single
than the majority of the Star Trek movies, and more than a few of the episodes.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's bring this to a close here. Christopher Michelle of The Skinny. Quill's family versus friends dilemma aspires to The Empire Strikes Back, but though the tin-eared dialogue is certainly Lucas-esque, that's an insult. Volume 2's thematic reach far extends its grasp. First of all, this shows you haven't actually watched any of the prequels. That was entirely written by Lucas, because his dialogue is some of the worst ever.
It really, really is.
We're talking Richie Rich on Netflix level bad, and I'm thinking in some cases the Richie Rich show might have been better. It's so stupid.
Yeah, no, that's again. I don't understand what exactly had to happen for you to arrive at that wrong a conclusion. I don't understand the misfires that are going on in your synapses.
Okay, this is another good one. Gary Thompson of the Philadelphia Daily News. The underdog panache of the original has ebbed, and now begins the tedious world building and brand building that becomes necessary when you make $700 million at the box office.
No, they're still the underdogs. Do you not understand how that whole final sequence works? Hey, there's 7 of us. There's a whole fleet from the Sovereigns and a giant planet, and they're all trying to destroy us. I mean, they were less underdogs in the first one when they had the entire Nova Corps supporting their plan.
Right. And it was one ship they were trying
the Ravagers
to stop from landing.
Just no. Again,
Kyle?
I can't.
Kyle Smith of National Review. I suppose there's a kind of genius in Gunn's ability to remember what made him laugh in the fourth grade. But if your sense of what's funny hasn't grown a tad more sophisticated since you were in primary school, then ampersand.
Okay, look, I get talking down to dumb humor. I really do. I'm famous for it. Well, internet famous, loosely. This isn't dumb humor. I mean, sure, some of it's, oh yeah, it's funny to watch the Ravagers get bounced up and down like they're on a trampoline. Sure. Okay. I mean, this isn't, the highest of highbrow witticisms or, classically trained European-style clowning that involves heavy monologue and pantomime. All right, I'll give you that. But really, Mark, you and I have seen movies that had much lower, much dumber comedy than this.
Yeah, we have. So I'm reading this one just because I love reading this guy's reviews. Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal, top critic.
Oh, this guy.
This guy, old crotchety man. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 probably couldn't, and definitely doesn't, recapture the sweet and singular silliness of the original, though the new edition from Marvel Studios and Disney has its rewards. Why are they making this poor old man go see these films? He clearly doesn't like them. And can't get out of his own way to give it up.
Why is it that this is why we get so many, okay, if this is the prevailing sentiment, not just among reviewers, but among moviegoers, right? And let's assume that it represents maybe not a majority, but certainly a significant number of them, right? I like this. I want more of this. How dare you change it? Right? We're familiar with this sentiment. I now understand why all the Fast and the Furious movies are so interchangeable. Because how dare you change them? How dare... I mean, look, all the Transformers
hang on,
movies.
That leads us to this next one then. Because if you like that, you'll love this. Soren Anderson of the Seattle Times, yet another top critic, another person who I read his stuff constantly because I am utterly amazed at each time I read them how bad they are. It's a rare misstep for the usually sure-footed folks behind the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which again makes me think you haven't actually seen any of the movies before.
Yeah, that's the only assumption I can reach here is you're dealing with such incomplete information that this is the only conclusion you can arrive at. I mean, it's like that guy from one of the last movies we reviewed who said the Fast and the Furious or the Fate of the Furious, who compared it to Fury Road. Like, the only way you can reach that conclusion is if you haven't seen a movie between those two. I mean, I can't imagine the skewed set of data points that led to him arriving at that conclusion. Because that's all I can arrive. That's it. Like, there's no other way to arrive at that other than you have not actually taken in all the material necessary to make that statement.
Well, speaking of which, this person claims to have seen these movies, though the ones he names, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know, man. I'm not buying it. Alistair Harkness of Scotsman. It ends up standing alongside Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World, and Avengers: Age of Ultron as another example of the Marvel sophomore slump. Okay. I get what the overall point is, but if he is in any way seriously comparing Iron Man 2 to this, I mean, again, not yet another person who probably shouldn't be reviewing movies for a living. Iron Man 2 was basically like almost written by committee to set up the Avengers. And to, I mean, that one was almost exclusively exist to do world building. And, it was like, they were like, let's take the demon in a bottle story and squeeze a bit of essence out of it and then throw it into this other thing that's just supposed to set up this bigger universe. And it's the most mishmash, disjointed movie, one of the worst in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we talked about the villain problem already. So, yeah, Iron Man 2 is a fucking mess. None of those things are true.
I mean, really, how many times in that movie did they beat us over the head with Tony is dying of palladium poisoning? You want to get wasted watching that movie? Take a shot every time that's brought up in either dialogue or visuals.
And you have Thor: The Dark World, whose villains
Malekith is the dirt worst. All right, let's be fair. Beyond that, though, there's a lot good about the Dark World. There's a lot that's better than the first Thor movie, actually. A lot of the action is much more realized. It's much more fleshed out. And look, again, Malekith, he sucks. No two ways about that.
Malekith is a video game.
But the battle between Thor and Malekith at the end is tremendous.
Yeah. It's visually great, but everything getting to it as far as what Malekith is trying to do. Look, the best parts of that movie are Thor and Loki, or Thor and other characters and their interactions. But the actual stuff concerning the villains suck diddly-ucks other than the end fight scene, which is a video game fight. And then there's Age of Ultron. Might as well be called Avengers Age of Tony, because he's the real villain of the movie. Only they don't quite get you there. They just shy, much like Civil War, they just shy back from saying the real fuck of the Marvel Universe is actually Tony Stark. Ultron, who could have been such a great villain, and they gave such good stuff to James Spader, basically becomes like, I want to take over the world. It's like there's nothing, and it's just like they're just trying to find shit for Ultron to do. None of that is true in this movie. None of it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is much more comparable to Winter Soldier than to any of the other sequels. It's again, I agree with you. Like that person just doesn't quite understand how this works.
No. All right, I'm going to read one more here, and I think we're done. Marianne Johansson, a flick philosopher, thinks it's edgy, and this is actually a very common thing. I haven't read a lot of these, but just know that what I'm about to read you is the consensus of many of the reviews, especially the rotten ones on Rotten Tomatoes. Thinks it's edgy and transgressive. The punk little brother of all those other stodgy comic book movies, but it isn't. It's just slightly more candy-colored.
Okay, let's start with it's not edgy. Right? The fact that you bothered using that word makes me question your life choices, much less your ability to process information. Right? Second, this is brightly colored deliberately, much the same way certain Iron Man movies are brightly colored. Much the same way, much as I hate it, and I hate this decision that they're going with, they're going to turn Thor Ragnarok into, an 80s Technicolor thing. It's not, I wouldn't even say this is necessarily the brightest, most candy-colored of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'd have to sit down and really think about it, but Doctor Strange in many ways was a lot brighter, visually at least.
I could read so many more of these. They're so bad.
Look, and here's my point. This is not edgy in the sense that you're trying to make it work. This is a vision from a different director, is primarily what this is. A lot of the other MCU movies, again, like Mark said, they're kind of made by committee. They seem to just have let James Gunn do his thing, which is great. And because of that, it feels different. But this isn't the rebellious, I need a music comparison since that's what they tried to do. This isn't like Nirvana, trying to, rebel against the conventional rock of the time. That's not at all what this is.
Here's the thought. Here's a guy who's just trying to tell a story. Hey, I'm going to read this last one to you, and then we're going to close up shop here. This pretty much sums up every bad review. This is the sum total of all the nonsense and stupidity amongst the reviewers that we are lampooning in this bit. This, ladies and gentlemen, says it all. Brian Bishop of The Verge. Compared to its predecessor, Guardians 2 has a hollow emotional core, and the plotting feels clumsy. This movie doesn't have any real purpose, even as a bridge to other chapters in the Marvel story. I give up.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
Go play in traffic. All right? I mean, no, there's no emotion here. No, Peter reconciling with Yondu at the end as Yondu gives his life. Peter's, search for trying to find his father in general. The eventual reconciliation between Gamora and Nebula. I mean, Nebula's bit about, you just wanted to beat me and all I wanted was a sister. I mean, in this movie, that's the rough equivalent of Rocket Raccoon getting drunk and going, I didn't ask to be made. It comes a little bit out of left field, but really smacks you.
But I love that, you wonder why Nebula has this hard-on for Gamora, and you hear her story, and in one sentence, like, every time you beat me, Thanos replaced me with a robot part, and you just wouldn't let up, to the point where I'm disfigured, and all I wanted from you was just for you to be my sister, and you see the shame on Gamora. Look, Zoe Saldana is not going to win any Oscars anytime soon, but she really showed a lot of emotion in just that one scene, and all she does is react to what Nebula is saying, and it's a brilliant scene, and it's like you look at that and you go like, yeah, there's no emotion there. What?
Yeah, or I mean, the Ravagers finally coming through at Yondu's funeral. No, how could that possibly be emotional for anyone? What are you doing? And it doesn't serve a purpose. Here we go again with that discussion, because we've had that one. Doesn't even set up other chapters in the MCU. Well, maybe if you're used to Thanos popping out at the end of a movie and if you're used to the very obvious A to B setup, maybe you're struggling to see it in this one. But other than you needing to be led by the hand, from point A to point B, you're just, I don't know what to tell you.
I can't wait for Infinity War next year. It's just going to be, look, I like a good event picture. I'm sure I'll have a good time with it. But I have a funny feeling a lot of the reviewers, it's going to range from, I loved it, I want to see it thrice more times because there was so much shit on screen and a zillion characters, all the way to feels overstuffed. What are you doing, Marvel? By the way, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, 18% on Rotten Tomatoes currently.
Oh,
so let's have fun with that this weekend. Well, The Boss Baby is steady at 53% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Everyone who positively reviewed that movie needs to slam their head in the door.
It also got a positive, it also is higher than King Arthur currently? Smurfs, The Lost Village at 38%.
Again, I don't expect that to be a great movie, but I've been a fan of Arthurian lore since I was 12 and got fed up with the crap that was The Sword and the Stone and read The Once and Future King, which I somewhat regret in the sense that there's no way I adequately processed the totality of information from that book reading it at 12.
All right.
Look, my contemporaries, what they were reading, if they were reading, versus me sitting there with, The Once and Future King, which is still generally the definitive story of the Arthurian legend. Guess what? I didn't have too many friends.
All right. So this is part two of our look at the Guardians of the Galaxy this week. Now, We're not doing an entire week of Guardian stuff. There just isn't that much out there. So source material, we looked at the 1 through 6, known as Legacy, of the Abnett and Landing Guardians of the Galaxy run, also known as Volume 1. So check that out in the archives. Tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, Robert Cooper is finally off from work, so he's taking control of the show. We're going to look at Vampire with Primeval Force. And if you're wondering what happened last week, basically Netflix pulled Contact from its streaming service, so I wasn't able to watch it. Not that I could have. I had set myself up to watch it while I was getting my chemo treatment, and I slept. Ooh, boy, did I sleep. Last week was rough for me, not because of the cancer, but because my in-laws were in the Keys, and I had to drive my kid 3 out of the 5 days down to Apollo Beach, which meant I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, then go to work. And on the days that I was off, one day I had a nuclear stress test, and the second day I had chemo. So, yeah, I slept like a bastard in that chemo chair. It was the best sleep I've had in weeks. But needless to say, I was not able to watch Contact. So we are rescheduling that for 2 weeks from tomorrow, or rather a week from tomorrow. In the meantime, what we are doing, let's try that one more time, a week from Thursday. In the meantime, still on the schedule, but actually rescheduled from earlier this year, from when I was in the hospital, as a matter of fact, your Hunter from the Future, Because You Made Me, and this time the you is Sean Comer. All right. Take it easy.
As someone who has seen your Hunter from the Future.
All right. Keep it in your pants. So, like I said, Vampire with Primeval Force and your Hunter from the Future. Next week, here on Ye Olde Radulich and Broadcasting, on the Source Material podcast, Jesse Starcher is going to talk with Benjamin J. Colon, and they are going to deal with Craven's Last Hunt. Robert Winfree and I will review King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. We are finally doing our covers show. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our yearly cover show, Covers 4, the rematch is what we're calling this one. I have made it my personal goal in life to beat Robert Cooper in a competition that isn't really a competition. But yeah, I lost last year because I picked too much stuff that wasn't metal enough for Jesse Starcher. I aim to fix it this year. I'm gonna bring in ringers this year, and then, as I said, we'll do Contact. We've got 2 themed shows to close out May. We've got Aliens Week right here in the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. On Source Material, we're gonna look at Defiance, the Aliens comic book, Volume 1 out now. Volume 2 will actually be out in October, for those of you who are reading this thing. Then Robert Winfree and I will review Alien Covenant. Not quite Aliens, but close enough. The Metal Hammer of Doom will be reviewing the new Dragon Force album, Reaching into Infinity. And then Sean Comer and I will put Prometheus on trial. And then finally closing out is Pirates Week.
Man, are you defending or prosecuting Prometheus?
Oh, I am prosecuting that motherfucker.
I don't know. This might be another one where you wind up dead to me for a week.
Get over it. And then, of course, Ye Olde Pirates Week. On the here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. All pirates all the time. Our comic book edition to Pirates Week will be Nightcrawler, Volume 1, because he was a pirate. Get it?
He was.
Pirate. He was. Of course, Robert Winfree and I will be reviewing Pirates of the Caribbean 5, Dead Men Tell No Tales, the beginning of the last arc of the Pirate series.
I think it's the last one.
No, there's more. This, from what I'm reading, this is they are going to be doing more movies, but it's all going to be in service of this last story they're telling. So there's at least one more movie coming, if not more than that. The new Ailstorm will have come out by then. No Grave But the Sea. We'll be reviewing that. And then finally, Ronnie Adams will be on TV Party Tonight as part of Pirates Week. we'll be reviewing Black Sails Season 1. And then speaking of Ronnie Adams, the Screaming Boy podcast will be doing their own show about pirates. And on June 3rd is Aldo versus Holloway for the unified featherweight title on pay-per-view. Very exciting. Very exciting stuff.
That's a great fight.
Speaking of pay-per-view, this Saturday is Miocic versus Dos Santos 2, Electric Boogaloo. I am very excited about this pay-per-view as well.
This is the best pay-per-view they've put out this year. That whole main card is stacked. Every fight on that main card could main event. Now, the top 2 could main event a pay-per-view. The other 3 could easily main event fight nights.
That's right.
Easily.
The co-main event features the future Mrs. Robert Winfree.
She's already engaged. Your statement is consequently erroneous. Please rectify it.
She could still marry, divorce, and then marry you, which is my prediction.
I find your series of events to be entirely too improbable for that statement to still stand.
The future ex-Mrs. Robert Winfree, Joanna Champion, will be defending her title against some broad. Looks to be a great fight, though.
Jessica Andrade. Yeah, she's kind of a tank. She's a brawler. There's going to be some violence in that fight.
Yeah, I got a buddy coming over who doesn't really watch MMA. We tend to talk old school wrestling when we do text each other. But I told him, this is going to be look, if you're going to watch any fight this year, this is a good one to watch.
Yeah, you've also got Damian Maia versus Jorge Masvidal, and apparently at the moment Maia is actually the underdog, so maybe get in on that betting action. You get again Maia versus Masvidal. There's Frankie Edgar versus Yair Rodriguez, which will be interesting, and Henry Cejudo versus Sergio Pettis. And if Pettis wins that, he's probably going to be number 10 for DJ. The main event of the prelims is good, too. Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. Those two bring, again, violence. This is a violent event on paper. I'm looking forward to it. I will have live coverage of, again, UFC 211 in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. I'm sad about this event for precisely one reason. I know what comes after it. You see, the next several events, because this event, great event. Provided it holds together over the next few days, and I'm really hoping. However, after that, we have Fight Night Gustafsson versus Teixeira. It's not a good card. The co-main event is Misha Cirkunov versus Volkan Oezdemir. That's how bad that card is. Then there's UFC 212, which has a great main event. That's Aldo and Holloway. I love that fight. I am so looking forward to that fight. The rest of it, I mean, there's one or two good fights. Rafael Assunção and Marlon Moraes is going to be that should be baller. But beyond that, I mean, Anderson Silva's finally off the card. But beyond that, it's kind of a weak card. Then you get UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Hunt. I mean, Mark's over there without his pants off at the thought of Mark Hunt and Derek Lewis fighting.
Hell yeah.
To the majority of us, and then the rest of the card is, I mean, the co-main event is Derek Brunson and Dan Kelly. I mean, the fight between Joseph Benavidez and Ben Wynn should be awesome, but again, and then there's UFC Fight Night, Holm versus Correia. For some reason, Betch Correia is headlining another event. Despite coming off of a draw she was lucky to get, and Holly Holm on a 3-fight losing streak, also in the main event. The co-main event is Andrei Arlovsky and Marcin Tybura. Again, the most interesting fight on that card is Tarek Safadine versus Rafael dos Anjos. And after that, we have Fight Night Chiesa versus Lee. I like Chiesa versus Lee. I really do. That's a good fight. The rest of that card, I mean, BJ Penn's fighting Dennis Seaver, which I don't care about, but there's people out there that do, I assume. It's not a good card. And then that leads to the tough redemption finale, which, who cares? UFC 213. I don't have another card to actually look forward to, top to bottom, until 2/13. There's only 3 bouts announced. They're Robbie Lawler versus Donald Cerrone, Fabricio Verdum versus Alistair Overeem, and Anthony Pettis versus Jim Miller. And the main event is rumored to be Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw. And that's the one I'm looking forward to. But, man, oh man, it's a rough stretch between now and then. It's a really rough stretch.
All right, that's all we got for you for now, folks.
I think Bellator's god-awful pay-per-view falls somewhere in there.
Yep. You're going to have to send me a free link on that one. You're going to have to send me a free link on that one. I don't know if I can bring myself to pay money for it.
You ask, I will find you one. Because I get reimbursed for that shit. I hate Bellator so much.
All right, with that, I would say he was going to take a drink, but we all know he's a teetotaler. So while Robert Winfree cries into his chocolate milk, we thank you for joining us.
I have cherry Coke. That's what I have. That's my drink of choice. Because the old joke about Mormons and caffeine. Cherry Coke is my drug of choice as far as that goes.
Thank you for joining us on Damn You Hollywood. All right, before we go. Now, I wasn't prepared for this tonight. I set the show up and everything ahead of time, and that's all well and good. But I didn't. This is the official start of the summer blockbusters, of which this whole series revolves around. Yes, we've gone mostly all year round, except we take a month off here or there when it's nothing but hot garbage, so we can do other things like TV parties or just refill our batteries or whatever. No sense dragging ourselves to the movies for nonsense. But really, this all started because of the summer blockbusters. And last year, we changed our theme momentarily to reflect that. Last year, we did the Are You Ready for the Summer? Now, do I do that again this year? Do I spend a few minutes before I go to bed tonight and pitch you some summer-themed music between now and the end of July, or do we just say fuck it and leave it with Hooray for Hollywood and stop messing with the theme music?
I don't care. I mean, look, I'll find a way to look. This is the time of year that you really look forward to, and I half dread, right? So because when we did Are You Ready for the Summer, I would frequently complain about the irony, the juxtaposition of a happy song about summertime and freedom with me having to wade through cinematic dreck. And if you leave it up as Hooray for Hollywood, I will just roundly curse Hollywood. If you give me something else, I'll work with that. I'm good either way. Personally, I have no preference.
All right, I'm gonna spend a few minutes then looking up some summer songs here for my own mirth and enjoyment. And for the rest of you, thank you for joining us here on Damn You Hollywood on the Rattle Legend Broadcasting Network. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Napa know-how. A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how. Wingstop lives flavor, and you crave it. That's why we've created the boneless flavor fix for you and your crew. 20 boneless wings, 4 flavors, 2 fries, 2 dips, and 2 cold drinks for just $20. Whether it's lemon pepper, Louisiana rub, or atomic, finding your flavor combo is easy, but deciding who you're going to split it with, that's a different story. The boneless flavor fix. Just $20 for a limited time at Wingstop. The wing experts. Prices and participation may vary. See local restaurant for details.